1989 was a year when the fight for freedom was front-page news. Some 6 months after the student protests in Beijing, in another capital halfway around the world, the people once again took to the streets.
When I was a child, I watched the Berlin Wall going up. To be there on the day that it started coming down was an unbelievable experience.
It was amazing, the whole thing. Watching this, you didn't want to go to sleep. Didn't want to miss anything.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime story. The politicians were going to officially declare the border open between the two Germanys. The people didn't wait for that at all. They began walking past the politicians. They began climbing over the walls, hugging each other.
After almost 3 decades of separation, Germans of East and West embraced in a common victory. Some came because they wanted to test whether it was true. Others, embittered by years of repression, came vowing they would never go back.
It was really history. This was actually happening right in front of you, and you saw these waves of people and reunions and hugs. Unbelievable drama.
It's great. I just can't believe it.
When they finally saw that the governments could no longer hold them back, there was nothing to restrain them.
I saw it on TV, and I think it's not possible. I must go to Berlin and look at it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
The symbol of the Cold War, the Berlin Wall, was under attack Friday night. Berliners from east and west wielded hammers, sticks, whatever they could lay their hands on to chip away at years of separation.
This was the beginning of the end of communism in Europe. The first chips that were, coming out of that wall as people were pulverizing it. I have a piece of the Berlin Wall. It's about this big, and I'll cherish it forever.
We were told that part of the wall was being torn down. There were about 3,000 people on the West German side. And all of a sudden, out of the dark of the East German side, this crane just showed up and brought down its claw. And finally, this slab of wall just sort of cracked open. And it brought a tremendous cheer, like you've never heard at any sporting event. That was just, it gave you tingles.
The tide is clearly turning in favor of those who want significant political change here.
I wasn't in Berlin long because I was then sent to Prague to see what was happening there in what was then Czechoslovakia. There was a demonstration on November 17th, 1989. They marched down the streets, they marched to a cemetery, they marched all over the place, and the police blocked them, and there was really a showdown.
It was on November 17th that Czechoslovakia's communist leaders decided the growing protest movement could somehow be crushed by the force of clubs and the fear of arrest.
Let's take off very quick.
I got beaten up a lot back then. The times when the police were coming at us, even at the press, and beating us up, the anger on these troops' faces, just very scary anger. And you'd turn around and you'd look at the protesters, and they had a lot of determination on their face. They were going forward no matter what.
1 week later, I came back, and I'm in Wenceslas Square with 1 million people.
At the biggest rally in the history of Czechoslovakia, 500,000 people braved frigid weather to send a message to the government.
And then the new eventual president of the Czech Republic, Václav Havel, is addressing the people.
Every night, we'd go out to the square, and it would be absolutely dead quiet, deserted. And then the people would come, and you'd hear the keys ringing.
10,000 people are jingling their keys, and it made a horrific sound. These were people that were waiting for the oppression to be lifted. And again, it was almost like they were walking out of a cave into the sunshine.
Czechoslovakia and Germany then encouraged Romania. But when we arrive at the border crossing, they've already cut the hammer and sickle out of the heart of the Romanian flag.
The first time they opened their mouths freely was to cry "Down with Ceausescu" in last week's demonstrations.
There's a scene over and over again, wherever we went, 1989, people standing by the road flashing the V at us. And they knew who CNN was. They had been using CNN International via satellite in order to get their news.
Despite the provisional government's call for a ceasefire, war played its Christmas drum in the center of Bucharest.
Romania was the bloodiest of the East European revolutions. There were a lot of people that were killed. There was still Securitate, which was special police on the street. When you had to feed a tape at the TV station, you had to run through a sniper's alley. They executed Ceausescu on Christmas Day.
The dictator is dead, but he's left a mark on everyday life here that will take much more than a one-week revolution to rub out.
We will be happy if we have liberty and we have what to eat, what to sleep, to have warm water. Or for the children, you know.
I remember they would come up to you and tug at your sleeve and try to tell you their story, even if they didn't speak any English and you spoke no Romanian.
These people had been denied Christmas by their leader. They'd been told they couldn't have one. They'd been waiting all those years for a Christmas tree.
And not far away, people gathering. Normal for Christmas anywhere else, but forbidden here for 4 decades. From now on, Christmas time here will be more than a joyful religious celebration. It will be a time when a nation remembers its heroes.
For all of us here at CNN, thanks so much for watching. Our 20th anniversary celebration continues tomorrow night with Ken Starr, Anita Hill, Colin Powell, Barbara Walters, plus legal adversaries together, Johnny Cochran and Chris Darden, not to mention the Gulf War and a presidency under fire, and many more incredible moments from the 1990s.
Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. This clearly was a huge story, the biggest story we'd ever covered.
Orenthal, James Simpson.
A whole city was built across the street from the courthouse that we called Camp OJ.
Wow. Amazement is not strong enough to describe the feeling of seeing this building which had imploded.